Today's Locked On Thunder podcast. What's the ceiling for Jalen Williams as he continues to up his star power in the league, gracing the cover of Slam magazine? And I think the Thunder are going to have 3 All-Stars this season.
You are Locked On Thunder, your daily Oklahoma City Thunder podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Let's get it going on the Locked On Thunder podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. I am your host, media member, and beat writer for Thunder on SI, Rylan Stiles. Follow me on Twitter at Rylan_Stiles. Follow the show on Twitter at LOThunderPod. Email the show, LOThunderPod@gmail.com. On today's show, we're diving into Jalen Williams' ceiling. How many All-Stars will the Thunder have, and how valuable, truly, is that Sixers pick with Derek Parker at DParkOK, publisher over at Thunder on SI, and NBA Draft, NBA Extraordinaire with his own YouTube channel and Draft Digest and many other sites. Derek, how you doing today?
I'm doing good, man. That intro gets a little longer every year. Every year we add one or two things to it. Eventually, the whole show is just going to be 30 minutes of you introing me. I mean, all right, that's it. Let's get out of here.
That's how impressive that your resume is. And then your resume, our resume together, only going to grow in a couple of weeks. So make sure that you stay tuned for that. But Derek, when you look at Jalen Williams, J-Dub, as he's called around these parts, he was on the cover of Slam today. It sold out in an hour. It's a very, very successful summer for the Thunder. I mean, Shai's shoes sold out in a minute. J-Dub's Slam magazine sold out in an hour. And in between that, they got paid massive extensions. J-Dub is coming off a year in which he was the second option on a title team. He scored 40 points in the finals with a torn ligament in his wrist. He made all defensive team. He made all NBA, and he was an all-star. Now, he's third team all-NBA, so that factors into this question too. When you look at Jalen Williams and the ascent that he's been on from a guy who NBA draft sickos loved to, okay, this guy's going to get lottery buzz, to, oh my gosh, this guy is going in the lottery, to the Thunder at 12, to, okay, now he's an all-star, all-NBA, all-NBA defense team as well. Where can this go for him? Where is his ceiling at as a player, and how can he get to that ceiling?
Yeah, I think it's tough right now to pin down his ceiling, just kind of given the volatility of how his career has gone. Like, he jumped in and he was immediately an awesome player, and then he was even better the next year, and then he got even better the next year. So it's hard to put a cap on what he can even be right now. Again, considering that he hurt his wrist, like, that alone would boost some postseason numbers, would boost some overall numbers. I think there's still a little bit more offensively to add to his game. You know, his efficiency dipped quite a bit from year 2 to year 3. I think that can either meet in the middle a little bit, or maybe even return to some of those earlier numbers where he was shooting in the mid 50s field goal percentage wise. He shot quite a bit better from 3 in year 2. I don't want to cap his ceiling, but I also don't want to say he's going to get way, way, way better than all NBA third team with a guy like Shai on the team, with other options like Chet emerging on the team. So it's a hard thing to pin down. I think regardless of that, the extension's well-deserved. I think the Thunder have themselves a guy who's proven he can step into that number 2 option if need be, has proven that he can be that all defense type player if need be. So yeah, just a highly versatile, highly volatile option in Jalen Williams. You don't know what you're going to get on any given night, but it's usually going to be pretty good.
And I don't say this comparison lightly, in the sense of he feels a lot like Shai, where it's like every season we tried to put Shai in a box of like, okay, he was a fringe all-star. That's what he is. Like, that's a great outcome for the trade with the Clippers. Okay, now he's an actual all-star and an all-star starter. All right, come on. He's top 5 in MVP voting. He's an all-star starter. This is Shai. And every year he's gotten better, including last year whenever he won the MVP, and he continued to improve on these skills of himself, like his playmaking ability, taking a step forward last season. So he's continuously evolved in his game. And Jalen Williams has a lot of that same mindset, a lot of that same work ethic, and a lot of that same skill set of his game, where his game is so good right now. And I don't want to diminish anything that J-Dub has already accomplished, but there are facets of it, much like there were with Shai, where it's like, if you can just get a little bit better at this, that incremental increase takes you to a new tier of player. And one example would be what you saw him do after game 6 against Denver, where he was able to get to the rim relentlessly and rack up points, but also rack up free throw attempts. And once that snowball starts going, it turns into an avalanche for players. We know all about superstar calls, and that's been a thing for the NBA's sake for as long as it's been a league. And he was not getting calls early in the season, much to the dismay of him, the frustration of him, and this entire Thunder team. If he can improve his free throw rate, that naturally jumps up your points per game category, which naturally improves your perception as a player. I think his 3-point percentage has a chance to evolve too, and be a sticking point for him long term. And I think that these things, on top of being an excellent defender and a versatile defender, so much so that I think that when you look at his game, he can truly defend 1 through 5. He's one of the only players in the league who can do that. And we throw that tagline out there and half-heartedly mean it for some players. For Jalen Williams, it's legitimate. Like, he can compete and excel 1 through 5 defensively. So he is in that upper echelon tier, and I think it'll continue to make all defensive teams because he's continuing to be a defensive playmaker. But what if he goes to a 39% 3-point shooter? He was 36% last year, while he averaged 21 points, which is, of course, a career high. What if he goes to a 39% 3-point shooter on looks that are very good? I mean, he does not take bad threes. The 4.9 attempts last year from 3, also a career high from him, which saw his 3-point percentage dip. Like, the 4.9%, 4.9 attempts from 3, those were all good looks, and he's capable of making more of them. The 4.3 free throw attempts per game was a career high for J-Dub, but with his usage and his ability to get downhill, he should have gotten more calls. He just should have. And so what if those two things jump, and now he's a 25-point per game scorer? And then, as a guy who, in our top 100 for Locked On, we've already put him in the top 20. He's at number 20 right now, behind Karl-Anthony Towns, Devin Booker, Kawhi Leonard, Evan Mobley, Cade Cunningham, Anthony Davis, Therese Halliburton, LeBron James, and Durant at 11. And then in the top 10, you still have Tatum, who's going to be out this season with an injury. You have Donovan Mitchell, you have Jalen Brunson, Victor, Anthony Edwards, Steph Curry, Luka, Giannis, Shai, and Jokic. Like, what does that do for him if he becomes a 25-point per game scorer as an elite defender? I think that just looking at this list, it vaults him above Karl-Anthony Towns. It vaults him above Devin Booker. It vaults him above current day Kawhi Leonard. And you really start to easily see a picture here where he can leap into the top 15 or even into the upper, top 15 of, like, what if he can get all the way to 12? And then you have the second best player at worst in the league, you can argue he's number 1, and the 12th best player in the world. All the while, you're still expecting a big leap from Chet Holmgren. So the comparison for Shai is not to say he's going to be an MVP. It's to say, I'm not going to put a ceiling on, okay, this is just all you can ever expect from him. Because there are ways, and we haven't even mentioned the playmaking background of J-Dub and how that can improve whenever he's handling the secondary unit, which can increase his assist per game category as well. All these different ways that we're not even having to squint to see them. We're not having to stretch to imagine a world in which he can make these improvements. Put him, to me, as a guy who can be top 15 at the end of this season, which is a 5-spot jump. And the 5-spot jump is massive when you're inside the top 20. So I think that that's where he can go at the end of this year.
Yeah, I don't disagree with any of that. And again, kind of made this point already, but even if he plateaued, even if God forbid, this is exactly what Jalen Williams is for the rest of his career, what a stellar player. I mean, to your point, can guard every single position, can score all over the floor, all 3 levels. He can play make, he can do everything. Not a bad player at all. I do think the absolute number one thing he needs to improve to really hit the tiers you're talking about, where we're talking about literally the best individual players on planet Earth. He's just got to get more shake with the ball in hand. He's really, really dependent on those on-ball screens from Hartenstein and whoever else to get loose. I think if he could really, really break down that first line of defense, we've talked about it before, that is something the Thunder struggle with outside of Shai. They don't have a lot of ball handlers that can really, really, with advantage creation, break down that first line, get past the first line of defense with handling, speed, strength, whatever it is. If he could do that on a consistent basis, to where he can break down that point of attack defender, open things up, draw doubles, play make for others, get downhill even more. That would be the number one thing that I think would really get him to that 25 points per game, opposed to hovering around 19, 20, 21, where he's been these last few years. So yeah, I mean, stellar player. There's things he can add. To your point, again, the 3-point shooting can get better. It was 42, nearly 43% in year 2. It was less volume, but that's still an absurd number that points to a ton of touch and confidence in his shot. So yeah, I think the sky's the limit for Dub. I am with you. Don't want to put him in a box. I don't really want to put any of these Thunder players in a box after some of the progression and development that we've seen over the last half decade.
And I'm glad that you brought up the separation, because that's been something that I've talked about all summer of I would saddle up. If you're going to start the double big lineups and you're going to have to stagger the bigs at some point, I would saddle up Hartenstein with J-Dub because of the separation that Hartenstein creates with the screen setting ability. Hartenstein is a world better screen setter than Chet Holmgren. It's just the facts of the matter. And that elevates J-Dub more than it elevates Shai. Shai can naturally create separation for himself, and Shai's value would be with Chet of having someone to draw a defender away from him at the 3-point line. And if you choose not to draw the defender away from Shai at the 3-point line, it sets up a brilliant shot for Chet from 3, wide open, top of the key, just knock it down. So I do think that if you get to the point where it's not a requirement to have a wipe away screen for Jalen Williams to have success, then it does continue to catapult him up this list. That's another great area for him. And even in the mid-range, like last year, I think that his mid-range was excellent considering the shot quality. Now, it did go down. Like he shot 46% in the mid-range from 49%. But there were more explorative shots from J-Dub. There were more difficult shots trying to get to that elbow jumper over a defender, where now that he's had that for a season, now that he's been working on that for the whole season of making higher difficulty shots, he's improved his body control even over the course of last season in those moments. What if his mid-range jumper goes back to that 49, 50% number, which was in the 91st percentile from wings in his season 2? What if season 4, it goes back to that from 3 and from the mid-range on top of what we expect him to do at the rim? I do think it's all very interesting to see what the ceiling could be for J-Dub. I think that this year he has a chance to keep building. Of like, he was third team All-NBA last season. What if he's second team this year and it all down the list? So a lot to talk about from J-Dub, including how many All-Stars will the Thunder have next season and why that number should be at 3. But first, I want to say right now, our good friends over at Monarch Money, folks. Go check them out today at Monarch Money, Derek, because most people can't name all their financial accounts, whether it's a 401k or property or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you end up leaving money on the table. That's why there's Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives, so you put off, organizing your finances if you're kind of stressed or whatever. But Monarch Money can help you do that while immersed in your busy life, because they do the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, smart categorization of your spending, and feel like you're in full control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet, which is my personal favorite part because, not a math pot here. So with Monarch Money, I love the fact that they give you that categorization, because for me, I'm a sucker for subscriptions. Oh, a free trial here, a free trial there, $5 a month here. And then you review in Monarch Money with their categorization. I'm still paying for this subscription. I haven't used this subscription since the Polk administration. Cut that out, save you money, and have a lot of fun over there at Monarch Money. So do not let these financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Go use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com on your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off. That's half your first year at monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNBA. We're back on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every single morning, every single day. We're here for you, talking Thunder basketball. Subscribe across all podcasting platforms, you everydayers. We love you so much. Derek and I both do. And we'll have more stuff for you coming up this season on this very channel. So make sure that you're subscribed on YouTube. But Derek, when you're looking at this team, we expect them to be the 1 seed in the West for the 3rd straight season, which is an impressive feat in and of itself. But this team is the deepest, most talented roster in the league, and they have a unique DNA of being 0-0 constantly and 1 of 82 constantly, etc., to where by the time that you get to the All-Star break, it will be just to get multiple All-Stars. Because what does it take to get multiple All-Stars? Even though it's an individual category, it does take team success as well. I think that's part of what elevated J-Dub's case last year. Was like he was good individually. He should have been an All-Star individually, but to get him over the edge and as a tiebreaker, it was like, well, the Thunder are just running away with this thing in the tough Western Conference. You have to have them get multiple All-Stars. It would have been an anomaly historically if the Thunder won that many games and did not have multiple All-Stars. And so they're going to be in line to do that same thing again this year. And hopefully all three of the options will be healthy. So I'm going to put it to you, over under 2.5 All-Stars for this Thunder team this season in the Intuit Dome. If you think more, of course, we'll have 3 All-Stars. Less will be 2 or 1.
It's tough for me to come on here every year, every single year since 2022 and say Chet Holmgren is going to get so much better and he's going to be an MVP candidate and he's going to be a multi-time All-Star. And I just mere seconds ago came on here and glowed about Jalen J-Dub Williams getting better, not even having hit his ceiling so far as a player. Having said those things and then turning around and being like, no, only 2 All-Stars. So I think I lean 3. The tough thing is that, number one, All-Star selections are not always purely based on play. Like there is politics and all kinds of things that play into these selections. There's going to be players that have played illustrious careers that maybe didn't have the greatest season, but they're still going to be an All-Star because that's who they are. They're an all-time legend, and that's just how it is. And that can leave room for guys like Jalen Williams and Chet Holmgren and whoever else to not be selected. Things like that are tough. My heart still leans 3. As you touched on, I think this is probably the deepest and best roster in basketball. I think they're going to win a ton of regular season games again. And I would imagine that they do have 3 All-Stars. I believe Chet can hit that this year. I don't think it'll detract too much from Jalen Williams getting his second. And then obviously I think Shai, health permitting it, is going to be a lock for the foreseeable future. So
I like what you did there, calling him Jalen J-Dub Williams. And it got me curious. Why don't we just use their middle names? Jalen Williams, J-Dub, his middle name, according to the internet, which we don't know if it's true or not, is Devon. And Jalen Williams, J-Will from Arkansas, his middle name is Michael. So maybe from now on, when he has a big play, you can just call him Jalen Devon Williams or Jalen Michael Williams. Anyway, to answer the question on the that's a tangent. To answer the question on the over under 2.5 All-Stars, I'm gonna go over. And obviously it's gonna be difficult, but anything worth doing is, Derek. And when you look at the All-Star trajectory for this team, Shai is a lock. J-Dub is a lock because I do believe his case was bolstered again last year by the fact that Thunder won. I think that there was a kind of a tie goes to the runner situation with J-Dub's All-Star campaign a year ago, and he deserved it. I want to make that very clear. But he's going to be better than he was last year. His All-Star case this year, if he's healthy, which is what it takes to be an All-Star, he will have played better in the first half of this season than he played at the first half of last season. So I think that because he was an All-Star last year and you have that reputation and you play better and you're still winning, he's going to be an All-Star. And so now it comes down to Chet. And it would be disingenuous for me to sit here and tell you all summer long how much I believe in Chet Holmgren and then not to say the over on Chet Holmgren, because I truly believe that when you have a top 3 defender in the world, which Chet Holmgren is in my book, a top 3 defender in the world, and you have a guy who's going to shoot close to or at 40% from 3, and a guy who is going to, I think, show you more on the ball, which is going to generate buzz. Now, the production, of course, has to be there. But what's the angle for Chet? It's a healthy season after playing 82 games as a rookie last year and then fracturing his hip 9 games in. It's a healthy season to get more exposure. And it's, he's doing this, which is different than what we've seen from him. And in those first 9 games on a small sample size, he was doing way more off the ball than he ever had before. And I think that will return this season. And so he'll have the buzz. They'll be talking about like, this Chet Holmgren adds a whole new dynamic to a team that just won a title. And for all those reasons, on top of his own individual production, on top of the team winning, I think he'll get into the All-Star game. I am curious what the voting structure looks like for the All-Star game. Whenever you're trying to do this whole world versus USA type of situation, does that help or hurt? guys like J-Dub and Chet, like Shai, of course, has to be on that world team, being from Team Canada and everything. When it comes to J-Dub and Chet, does it open up more spots for them? Because now, like Giannis and Jokic and these guys don't count against spots. Does it reduce spots for them? Because it's like if you did it East versus West, and you looked at the big category, you'd be competing with guys like Jokic, and that's a spot that was just automatically taken away from Chet Holmgren to try to get to in the Western Conference if we just did it the old-fashioned way. But now he's not represented in this, I don't think, because of how you want to structure the All-Star game. So that's another wrinkle into this. And his competition now becomes, if you go back and refer to our top 100, which Chet Holmgren already in our top 30. He was number 30. And you look at this list and you're seeing all-star potential guys, and AD is one of the guys above him at 14. I hope AD is an all-star because that means he's healthy. But that's no surefire thing for either party. And it could come down to something as simple as that, of like which one of them is healthy, because whenever they're healthy, they're going to produce, and they're going to produce at an all-star level. So I think they're going to get 3 all-stars this year. And then that raises the question of, like, to me, this team just won a championship. They're going to be better this season. And we also know how hard it is to compete. And from this point forward, as we're going to start to get back into media day and training camp at the end of this month, you look at a Thunder team that it's tough to balance. Like, okay, you understand how hard it is to get back and win a championship, but man, if there's any team that should buck the trend of parity in the NBA, it's this Thunder team. And that sounds very homerish coming from a podcast called Locked On Thunder, but Derek, it's just the truth. I mean, we're only talking about the top 3 guys, and to me, the most compelling developmental story in this roster is Cason Wallace, who hasn't even been brought up, and of course isn't going to be brought up in the conversation about All-Stars, but it's like, it goes beyond just the top guys on this team that are going to get better. I just feel really good, obviously, about where the Thunder are at.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think they will be a better basketball team next season. I don't know if the record will reflect that. I believe we've touched on that. It's going to be really, really hard to touch 68 wins again. It's possible, certainly. Again, they're going to be really, really good, probably better in a lot of ways, but I think one major factor that's working for all 3 of these players is a word that you touched on, that's buzz. Like, yes, they have the on-court impact, but they also have the off-the-court impact that truly makes them...
that strings for Chet Holmgren?
Yeah, I mean,
that?
They truly do have all-star type, like, buzz and aura, for lack of a better word. I hate that I used it, but Shai's obvious. We don't need to touch on that. We're going to move on. We're going to move on quick. Shai's is obvious. J-Dub has, I mean, the personality and the flash, and he's got the high-flying highlights and his fun post-game clips. And then Chet is basically came into the league as a household basketball name. Like, he's got the spindly, funky frame. He's extremely recognizable. He's also got some of the personality and funny clips and interviews and things like that. So those things factor in. Unfortunately, I don't know that they should when we're talking about all-star selections, but those things do factor in. And I think each of those players has at least 1 or 2 ways that they can be helped by their off-the-court kind of star aura, for lack of better words.
You went back to the aura well, huh?
I don't know what else to call it. What do we call it?
Charisma. I don't know.
Sure.
It's a good question. Let's just lean in. We're not unks yet. We're not past 30. We're not even at 30 yet.
We're getting close.
And oh my gosh, I might need to call off of work at Thunder and SI whenever I hit 30. That's going to be a really bad day for me. Anyway, that's a few years on the road. Hopefully we make it there. We're going to be discussing the value of the Philadelphia pick, but also just the value of the regular season, because you hit on a point that I think is fascinating about what this Thunder team can achieve in the regular season. Even though 68 games is a lot, like, this team got better. How much better, though? We'll talk about that coming up. But first, I want to say right now, our good friends over at Open Phone, go check out Open Phone today, because if you're running a business, you know that every missed call is money left on the table. Think about the last time that you were in an urgent need. Maybe you needed a plumbing service, an AC service, whatever you needed. If the first person you called didn't answer, did you just sit around and wait? Probably not. You moved on. You got what you needed. And that's why Open Phone is there for you. Open Phone is the #1 business phone system built to streamline and scale your customer communication, all from an app on your phone or computer. Open Phone lets you manage business calls and texts from a single app, and it's a shared inbox feature which is a game changer. Your team can jump into any conversation instantly without missing a beat. And their AI agent handles after-hour calls, answers common questions, captures leads, and you never miss a customer. OpenPhone is offering my listeners 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com/LockedOnNBA. That's OPENPHONE.com/LockedOnNBA. If your existing number with another service, don't worry. If you have that, OpenPhone will port them over, no extra charge. OpenPhone, no missed calls, no missed customers. We're back on the Locked On Thunder podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, talking about the OKC Thunder with Derek Parker, DPark OK on social media, Derek-Parker on YouTube, Thunder on SI, where you can find both of us, and we'll have more stuff coming out together throughout the season, which is going to start here at training camp. A very special announcement for that coming up. We might even spoil it at the end of this show. But, Derek, first things first, you hit on the fact of like, yeah, they're going to be better, but what does the record reflect? And there's a very high probability that this team is better than they were last season and they don't win 68 games. Because I've been saying all summer that I think it's disingenuous to just pencil in this team to win more than 68 games. It takes away from how hard it was and how hard it is to win 68 games in the NBA. However, I am thoroughly fascinated by the regular season for the Thunder for a multitude of reasons. Number one, how do they handle the target on their back? Because you saw it with the Thunder last year. Like, the Celtics weren't even the number one seed in the East last year, and they weren't trending to be the one seed in the East last year whenever you went to the Garden in March and measured yourself against them with an incomplete roster. Like, you still had injuries at that point that you were dealing with, and the Thunder played that game as if it was Game 7 because it was against Boston, and they wanted to see where they were at against Boston. So even the Thunder, who live this identity of 1 of 82, and you can't get them phased by any matchup, either in small or big proportion, even them, you could tell when you watch the game, okay, this is different. This is different when they play Boston. It's different when they play Denver. It's different when they play these teams that they're trying to see how they stack up with. And you become that team now all 82 games. From the rags to the riches of the NBA, they're going to be seeing what do they look like against OKC. And this overwhelming depth, this overwhelming defense, this overwhelming team. How do they handle that? I'm very curious about that. How do they handle the regular season knowing what's at the end of like, hey, we just played deep into June, and the goal is to play deep into June again. Can they stick with going all out in these games? I personally believe that they can. Number one, it's instilled in them. Number two, I think that they have a bunch of basketball maniacs, and I say that lovingly. I think they have a bunch of guys who can't turn it off, and it's either in you or it's not in you to turn it off. At whatever you're doing in life, whatever occupation you have, you either attack that day and attack that job 100% every single day, and you're not capable of doing less than 100%, or you're someone who's able to give 100% on Tuesday, and then Friday comes around, I'm trying to get to the weekend, okay, let's just mail it in. It's one of the two things, and neither one's right or wrong or indifferent, but we've seen that play out in the NBA with load management, with games in which, like, Denver's an option for this, of like, they're better. There's no chance that Denver last year, for all their problems, should have been swept by the Washington Wizards. That is pure not showing up. That is pure not just going through the motions in the regular season. You should not have been swept by Washington last year, Denver. And I know you have all these excuses. You shouldn't have. I don't think that that's in this Thunder team to do that. And so if I don't think that that's in this Thunder team to do that, and I do believe that they're going to stick to this 0-0 mentality, and I do believe that they're the deepest, most talented team, and I do believe that it is impossible, it is inconceivable to imagine this Thunder season going worse from an injury standpoint than a year ago, where they only had their team healthy for 8.5% of the games, as Sam Presti would so proudly tell you. And yet they still won 68 games, and they still won the NBA championship, being healthier in the postseason than they were in the regular season. So I'm increasingly fascinated by what if these fanatics in the comments of this very show, since the season ended last year in June, that have been typing away in the comments saying, this team's going to win 68. This team's going to win 78 games. They're going to win 80 games this season. They might win all 82 games this season. It's like, I don't have a lot to combat that with except for history. Because if this team is healthier this year, which they have to be, because it's almost impossible to be less healthy than they were last season, and they care about winning every single night, which it proves to be in this team's DNA at an individual level from top to bottom of this roster. Could they, I'm laughing saying it, but could they win 72 games? I don't know. I want to see what happens. I want to see this thing play out. Now, my official prediction will not be that they win 72 games. But I just want to, I know, boo, throw the tomatoes. I'm not predicting them to win 72 games. Shoot me. I don't actually do that. But when you look at this team, what does this regular season look like for them in the sense of win total is very fascinating, but not the end all be all. If they win 62 games this year, I still think that they're going to be the championship favorites. But what if they win 72 games? What if they win 69 nice games, have a very nice regular season? I'm very curious about that, DP. You can give any thoughts you want on that subject and that rant I just went on about the win total, but you can also talk about the Philadelphia 76ers, who are a very much importance to OKC because the Thunder own their top 4 protected pick.
Okay, where do I begin? You were flawless there. You covered everything. I agree. I think that there are basketball maniacs. I think that more than anything, the talent level of this team is going to carry them no matter what. Like, sure, if they take plays off and they really do get everyone's best shot on a nightly basis, that could add up in the long run. But also, we're talking about a team, as we have all episode, that has 3 potential all-stars, guys still developing that can potentially get even better. I mean, they've got the most built out, trustworthy rotation of role players in the entire league. I just think they're going to be a better basketball team every single night. Are they going to get caught some nights? Sure. But a lot of times they're just going to be better. So my prediction will be near 68. It'll be around there. It probably won't be that or higher, but it's going to be up there. And then, yeah, this Philadelphia 76ers pick is interesting, if only for the fact that the 76ers really are entering a season much as they did last year. Like we talked about them last year, the same as we are now, in that they've got Joel Embiid, they've got Paul George, they've got Tyrese Maxey. That's a star trio. Those players are really good. They've got up and comers in Jared McCain, VJ Edgecombe. They've got a decent built out core of role players. I believe they've got Kelly Oubre and Eric Gordon, and it's a good basketball team. And yet last season, what happened? They ended up with the number 3 overall pick. There's a chance that the same thing happens. Now, I do think Embiid missing another 70 games and Paul George being a shell of himself yet again and missing a ton of games, and then Maxey even getting hurt and all. I think it was a little
Jared
bit.
McCain getting hurt. It was an avalanche on him.
Yeah, it was an absolute avalanche for Philadelphia last season. I don't predict that to happen next year, but I would be remiss if I was to say that I think the 76ers team is going to return to contention after just one season. You know, I think Embiid is capable of playing 82 games? I don't think so. Is Paul George going to really return to like former MVP status? Of course not. So I think they'll probably land in the middle of the NBA somewhere, which is great for the Thunder, getting another middling NBA pick in a really, really good draft. And they've got the potential for that to go up and down. Now, there's potential that Philadelphia could be better. There's also potential that Philadelphia could be knocking on the door of a lottery pick. So super interesting. Such a blessing to have after an Al Horford trade a decade ago. So just crazy work by
a little rushed on that, but yeah, I mean, it's a half decade ago. It's been quite a long time. How fast time flies, by the way. When you look at Philadelphia, I have to say, I'm a Sixer apologist. I love the Sixers. I think the Sixers, I've never predicted them to finish worse than 3rd in the East before the season. This year, though, I like this roster again. I like the coach. I like the roster. I like the players. I like Embiid. But you have to know that they have the widest variance of outcomes of any NBA team this year, because they can finish in the 20s. In the Eastern Conference, they can, if they're healthy and they play up to standard, they can beat up on so many teams that they hand over a pick that's at 20 in the East. They can also hand over a pick in the top 10 with a top 4 protection on it, but a pick at 10. And they could also play somewhere like the 15, 16, 17 range. So as the draft expert, what's the cutoff of considering this to be a very valuable asset in this draft? if I tell you that the pick's at 15, what would you grade the value of the asset heading into this season before we know what prospects boom or bust, but just with the prospects that you know of and the knowledge that you have of these prospects, what's the value of the 15th pick this year?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit tough to say this far out, obviously. I mean, things are just so fluid, so volatile with an NBA draft. I mean, last season, 25 was supposed to be like one of the most heralded of all time. And expert opinion kind of cooled as we got closer. Like Cooper Flagg was great, Dylan Harper was great. But then after that, people thought the depth tapered off a little bit. People went back to school. So all that to say, there's a ton of factors. But I will say that 26 is even more revered than 25 was. And I think for good reason, seeing as there's legitimately 3 number 1 level guys, Darren Peterson, AJ DeBonsa, Cam Boozer. Those guys are legit. And if that's the case, that's going to push good players further and further down. There's going to be a tier 2 of guys that are going to be better because there's 3 really, really good ones. And that's going to keep making its way down to number 15. So in theory, the number 15 pick in the 26 draft would be a really, really good asset. I mean, that would be a pick in theory that teams like Brooklyn, Utah, Washington would really, really want to go and grab a player either that they think has a really high ceiling or a role player that they could plug into a growing core. So I think B+ to answer your question in terms of what that asset would be. I don't think I can give it an A, seeing as it's not like a top pick, but B+ is great for, again, a pick that you got 25 years ago, whenever they traded for it.
I mean, you're still in Seattle when you made this trade.
A century ago, we were on the Oregon Trail. So yeah, it's a decent asset.
Derek, if just off the top of your head and with the variables in place, if I tell you that pick is that 22, how far does that level, grade level drop if it's at 22 to 15? Or is this draft so good that it stays like a B-?
This is such a tough question.
No one's going to hold you to this in a court of law.
Well, at the end of the day, who are we talking about using the pick here? It's the Oklahoma City Thunder. Yeah. So whether they're picking at 3 or 15 or 22 or 46, they're probably making the most of the pick. The guy the Oklahoma City Thunder get at 22 is the same guy the Utah Jazz get at number 7. Like, that's just how it's worked for the last 10 years. So the 22nd pick for the Thunder, pretty dang good pick, honestly. Like, it's tough to contend with their management over the last handful of years. So I don't know. It's a good asset. As many draft picks as this team can have, just high fives all around, because they're probably going to make magic with it.
Check us out on Thunder on SI. Check Derek out on YouTube, Derek-Parker. Check him out on social media, DParkOK. Derek, we'll have a very special announcement the week of training camp that I cannot wait to get into. But until then, be good and be good to one another.